thank you everybody for coming out today. I really appreciate it. And thank you, Liz Holland, on behalf of myself and the library for coming out. It really means a lot. Thank you for being one of the guests.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I feel quite honored.
Well, in a few words, what are you known for on Island?
I don't think I can say it all in a few words, I'm afraid. Former restaurant and bakery owner, pastry chef, and now the manager of the High Line. And I guess that's about all the few words I can say other than explaining everything.
If it's okay with you, starting with your upbringing, can you just tell me a few words, like where were you born, raised,
Sure.
and what kind of brought you here to Nantucket?
I was born in New Haven, Connecticut. My parents had their honeymoon out here on Nantucket about 1955, and then after I was born, they would save up every year to come out, and we'd stay for a week. And I had one other sibling, my brother Christopher, and so the whole family would come out every year for just a week, and that would be our family vacation. So my parents definitely had a deep love of the island, and they certainly instilled that in both of us. Anyway, and so I went through school. I grew up in Westbrook, Connecticut, which is closer to the Connecticut River, right between Clinton and Old Saybrook. And then, was there for all my schooling, high school. Once I graduated from high school, I went to college. In the first year of college, that summer, I came out to Nantucket, and that was 1979.
What made you stay? What kept you here?
Well, I already had a love of the island from visiting every year with my family, but the community, and it was at that point, it was just an awesome place to be in terms of just the feel of the island and the history, and there was a lot of work to do, so it was kind of a natural fit, and I met quite a few people and had some really nice friends, and after I graduated from college, I just moved out for good.
What was the start of your baking career?
Well, my start of my baking career was when I was hired at Straight Wharf Restaurant, and that was in either 1980 or 81, I can't remember, but I was hired to bake the bread for Straight Wharf, and I would start off at Provisions and work with them, and that was when Meg DeGive actually was the manager there, so that was going way, way back. And then I'd help them, and then I would go over to the Straight Wharf and then do the breads over there. They had someone else at that point doing the pastries, but it was a wonderfully tight-knit team. Susan Mayer and Marion Morash were co-chefs at that point, and then Susan left, and then Marion became the actual chef. And of course, Jock Gifford and his wife Lane at the time, they were part of it too. And I think they opened it maybe 75 or 76, so it was kind of still a new business, but it was an awesome team, and a lot of the people actually that worked at Straight Wharf with me still live on the island, believe it or not, and a lot of them that came down just for the summer actually went, and they graduated and then started their own food businesses. So it was a really cool place to be for a couple years.
And you worked in Boston for a bit as well, right?
Yes, and
I may be getting this place wrong. Was it 29 Newberry Street?
Yeah. So then my boyfriend, who actually ended up, we were married for a long time after that, was getting his master's in psychology and counseling, and so he was going up to Cambridge, so we both went, and I helped open 29 Newberry on Newberry Street, and then
which is open for over 30 years. I think
Yes.
it closed 8 years ago.
Yes,
Yeah.
I know, that was pretty cool. So not the same owner, but the fact that they stayed open that long I thought was awesome. And that was in the 80s when it was the new regime of food where the wilder the food, the better, and very much a scene. And
it's also a thing where people would name their restaurants the name of the street.
Yes.
29 Newberry,
Yes.
21 Federal,
Yep.
things like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You don't really see that anymore.
No. And then from there I went over to the Harvest, which I had really enjoyed and worked with the whole team over there. Bob Kincaid was chef at that point, and so there was a whole crew of us there, and then that whole crew came down to Nantucket and opened up 21 Federal. I actually came back to Nantucket before they did, and then started back up at the Straight Wharf, and this time I was doing pastries and breads and all sorts of things and helping with brioche and anything else they needed, and that's how that whole part went. So.
Was it at 21 Federal, or where was it where you had an where you got some help with your French recipe from Julia Childs?
I was very, very fortunate. Marion was actually Julia Child's sous chef on the French Chef, and Marion's husband Russell actually is the person who was the producer. I'm pretty sure he was the producer of it. So Julia would come down for her vacations, quote unquote vacations. Of course, she'd work the whole time, and she helped me master apple tart tatin, and also helped me a lot with the baguettes. So it was awesome to have her in the kitchen, and she, you know, if you ever seen any of her takes of film or anything like that, that's exactly how she was.
Really?
Yeah. And her husband Paul would come down. He was a photographer, so the two of them would come down for vacation. So anyway, it was really an amazing time, and now, in retrospect, I can hardly believe that I had the start that I did. I don't really think about it that much. I kind of focus on what's right in front of me at the time. But I understand how lucky I was to be surrounded with the whole group at the Harvest. You know, all of those people are still my dear friends. We still get together. And then, of course, Straight Wharf restaurant and everybody there. And, of course, having Marion, who definitely is still, I consider, a friend, was really awesome.
Where did you get your start with your first restaurant out here, Off Center? Off Center Cafe.
So what happened was, of course, Straight Wharf was only open in the summer. So what I would do is I'd work at Straight Wharf in the summer, and then I'd go to the boarding house and bake for the boarding house in the winter. And I did that for a few years, and then I realized that they really needed me year-round, actually, at the boarding house. So I did that for, I can't even remember how long, but it was at least a couple years, even more. And then this opportunity came about, and we kept it very quiet. But this woman, Yola, actually owned the Rare Bird Cafe, and that was up where, 29 Center Street, okay? So, and it was way in the back of the building. And she also had the health food store as well, and Lucille and Bill Hayes were part of that. I think Lucille had a very keen interest, and still has, on health food and kind of helping the island have something like that. So anyway, I bought the Rare Bird Cafe from them, and so I went directly from the boarding house, and then went up and opened up Off Center. And we opened Stroll Weekend of 1988, which was a really long time ago. Anyway, I don't like to do the math because I think of it as not that long ago, and then I do the math and I realize how long. And so then I had that for 10 years. I ran that for 10 years. And so we did breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We started off with just pastries and breakfast. We might have been the first cappuccino machine on the island, I'm not sure.
Really?
But we did that, and then gradually, I saw that there was a market for lunches, so then we did lunches, and we did takeout, and then I started baking for different restaurants, and pretty soon I was baking for 7 different restaurants all over the island, bread for some, bread and desserts for some, desserts for some, and then we started doing dinners. And then I was like, oh my goodness, how do we? So you do it gradually, you add on gradually, and then all of a sudden you look and go like, holy crow, how are we getting all this done out of that little building? So there were 24 seats inside and 24 seats outside on the patio. So, and it was a wonderful, very intimate, and Ruth, and when I sold it, I sold it to Ruth and Tim Pitts. They were the only ones I wanted to buy it. And I actually waited. My husband Christopher came on board with me because I needed a short order breakfast cook. So his construction work was a little bit slower. So he came on board with me, and so we were both working it for the last years. So.
And then, did they turn it into the bistro?
So then they bought it, and they turned it into Center Street Bistro. And I wanted to have them have it because I knew they would do an awesome job, and of course they did, you know.
What was your decision making on wanting to just kind of sell the place you had started? Well, not really started, because I guess it started Lady Bird and turned into Off-Center Cafe, but...
At the time, I was pregnant with our daughter Lucy, and I realized that obviously was going to make a big change in my life, and clearly that was going to be the priority. And so the time commitment up there, I just wasn't interested in you know, continuing that, you know, knowing that I was going to have a young child to take care of. So,
was your next endeavor after Off-Center Cafe, was it going into Daily Breads, or was there something in between?
No. So then, because I had been working for making desserts for the Club Car, I went to work at the Club Car and making their desserts, and Michael Shannon was the chef then, and Tommy Proch was his sous chef, which of course then Tommy followed in Michael's footsteps. So I was there for I don't know how many, couple seasons, 3 seasons, and then Marshall Thompson, who was the maitre d' at the Club Car, was going to open up Even Keel on Main Street. So I went in to help him with that. So I left the Club Car, and then we opened up Even Keel, and then I was there for over a year, and then this opportunity came up at Daily Breads. Jeff and Sherry Dutton actually had bought it, and they were looking to sell it, and they had been selling, been on the market for a little bit, but it got to the point where I was at a price that I would be able to handle. So bought that, and then then we had the whole Daily Breads phase.
And Daily Breads was kind of, at least from talking to people, it was like one of the it spots. It definitely had a lot of fond memories. People think back on it pretty fondly, and either it be, oh man, like the scones or what is why do I always forget, the morning bun?
The morning buns, the strewn bread,
the pumpkin
muffins, the sour cream muffins, everything was freshly baked and artisan quality.
When you took it over, sorry to interrupt.
Go ahead.
When you took it over, did you change a lot of things, or was there mainstays, or?
Well, I don't necessarily mean to change everything. And we actually kept a lot of the things that were the tried and true, even from Kent Gritsky, the things that he had, and then some of the things that Sherry and Jeff had, but then we added a whole bunch of stuff. We had like a dozen cookies, we had all muffins, scones, handmade croissant, all sorts of things, and then I would add things more that would be a little bit heartier. We had because Huevos Rancheros was so popular at Off-Center, we had a Huevos Rancheros Peseta, which was a little pizza with the eggs and the ranchero sauce and cheese and blah, 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 right? And then it was more of a creative outlet for me. Of course, I had more, I did a lot of different desserts, both in Boston and at Straightworth, and just making desserts for everybody in town. I don't think I can ever have another creme brulee in my life, but the amount that I, between Company of the Cauldron and all the different restaurants with all the different desserts, it was always just a fun thing to be able to make all different things and what people wanted. So I had all the French pastries, but I also had apple tart tatin, of course, marquis au chocolat, some different French flavors, and then people would special order, or we would do catering or whatever. So, and then there was all the pizza. Then we made pizza from the bread dough. Instead of making pizza dough, we made it from our bread dough. And so that was wonderful for everybody to come in and buy a slice. We never sold them whole, just slices. But what the whole thing about Daily Breads that I loved is it was a real community thing. We had the line would form in front of the coffee station, and everybody would be, either joking around or looking for work or filling each other in on what's happening on a job site. The landscapers were there. They'd buy the cobblestones and they'd put them up in their dashboard, and the sun would make them nice and soft. And so it was the community feel for Daily Breads really was the thing that I really enjoyed. But it was also, the team that I had there was awesome, so it was more like family.
How are you able to kind of get that community feeling from, did you already kind of have it purchasing Daily Breads, or was it something that kind of happened organically? Or
it happened organically. It's like if you have a varied market, and you have all sorts of different people coming in. You've got the real estate people, you've got the summer people, you've got the landscapers, you've got the painters, you've got the plasterers, you've got the guys, the construction guys, and they want hearty, good food. We had sandwiches, we had a whole grab and go thing, so people could come in, had salads, we had all different sandwiches, we had the pizza by the slice, so we had a little bit for everybody. And when you do that, needless to say, I would run the whole thing with 6 employees in the winter, but in the summer we would have up to 28.
Wow.
Okay, but some of those would be part-time people. But the baking would go from literally 3:30 in the morning until 1 o'clock in the morning. So there was only two and a half hours. Well, you can appreciate that, being at something natural. 2.5 hours where there wasn't somebody in the building doing something. But when you have that varied market, and then things change, and the market goes down, you're covered. And that's an important thing for people to remember, is don't have just one focus of your market, because then you're reliant on that market. So, and things do change. We survived several within the restaurant and the bakery, several downswings in the economy, and actually I sold both businesses in a down economy. So I was very fortunate,
So did you feel as though Daily Breads was almost a different beast entirely of off-center cafe?
Oh, definitely, completely different beast. Yep.
What
People came to me,
Yeah.
sorry, I keep hitting the mic.
No worries.
People came to me for meals more at off-center, and it was a different sort of, it was downtown. It was a different sort of a market, basically, and then Daily Breads was off Orange Street, right across from Foods, so that was a whole different market. That was more of everybody, because they could just drive through and pick stuff up and then go.
Daily Breads, did it ever feel, being closed for really 2 hours, did you ever feel overwhelmed? Did you have a good supporting staff below you of like managers, or did you ever feel overwhelmed?
No, we never, I was the only person, but I was in there every day working too, so I was very hands-on. No, but I had an awesome team, and the people that I had working there with me, I'm still dear friends with, and some of them have gone and they went and they opened up their own businesses. Actually, Annie Blake Dawson, she helped me open up Off-Center, and then she and Mark went and opened Fog Island, so it's all a progression, and I'm always happy. I'm sad to see people go, but I'm happy to see them go if they're doing something, positive for themselves.
Speaking of kind of, you had awesome people below you, the people that did work for you speak often of how you treat people and your managerial style. What is it that you think they mean by that? What is your approach to managing that's so different than everybody else?
Well, that's an interesting question. I'm interested in who would say that. But I even run Highline the same way. I run it like a restaurant. We're all on the same team. We all support each other, and respect for each other. And I think that all of my employees could honestly say they know that whatever their situation is, because we get people, everybody's got something going on, is that you respect them as people and work with them the best you can so that they can succeed, because that's what you want them to do, succeed in their job, and they want to do it as well.
What do you think's what abilities in your toolkit do you think help you to be a good manager?
A lot of experience, I guess, in seeing people who would be awesome staff, but they're in other businesses, but they're not brought along, so to speak, you know, and lack of judgment. I think lack of judgment plays on. And if somebody knows that they are in your, you know, you're batting for them, there's a better chance that they're going to be Johnny on it because they want to be part of the team because it's like a family. So I think probably that would, if I had, that's kind of off of the top of my head, but I think that probably would be a large part of it.
Over time, do you ever get sick of being in the manager role? Or are you happy? Has it been something you've kind of, I mean, you've been in that type of style, owner or manager for so long. Have you just grown accustomed to it?
Well, it's not the management role, it's your customers.
Fair.
So sometimes, I mean, the management role can be, needless to say, very stressful sometimes. And but if I'm in a situation, I can always step in. I'm never like sitting at a desk not letting everybody else do the work. Do you know? And I think that helps. But having as much experience and having worked because the other thing I did when I had off center was we were open year round until people realized that maybe they should open something like what we had-ish, you know, like for lunches and things like that. So I would close for the winter, and then I would go do consulting up and down the Eastern Seaboard, opening up restaurants and helping people in bakeries and things like that. And I even spent a winter at Le Cirque in New York, working there under Jacques Therese. And so I've had a lot of different experience. And so, you know, you learn a lot by watching other people manage and what you would do to copy them or not.
Who are some of the people that you would watch manage that kind of were either mentors or you were inspired by to some degree?
Definitely Neil and Alan from the Languedoc. Yep, they definitely, I could always, you know, Neil would say, and we did all their bread and stuff, even off center, and then daily breads, and Neil would say, would you like to come over for a cup of coffee? They definitely were mentors. Marion was definitely a mentor. I mean, I've had a lot of them because some of these people were in the business longer than I was. I started, you know, when I was 20 years old. You know, so there's a lot of people. Jock Gifford, you know, he's had pearly words of wisdom went back there when I was 20 years old that rang true, you know. So I have quite a few people that, and we all work together. Like like my friend Riss Lacoste has her restaurant called Riss down in Washington, D.C. And then every once in a while she's like, Senorita, what happened to that breadstick recipe? Do you still have that? Or, you know, different people still, connection in New York, D.C., Florida, you know, now out west, L.A., you know, so all those people really have been mentors in one way or another too.
Kind of going back to daily breads, it kind of, I don't want to say ended or maybe sold a little earlier than you maybe would have imagined or liked. Can you kind of elaborate a bit on? Yes.
I unfortunately, right after I bought the business and I was changing it and everything, by that summer it was very aware that something was going on and I needed to get it checked out, and I ended up with rheumatoid arthritis. And so I managed it the best I could naturally for 4 or 5 years, and then it started to get the better of me, and unfortunately being in a yeast environment, that's why the sourdough was so good, is the whole building was filled with yeast spores, you know. And being around gluten, and of course the stress of running your own business, and then your diet is not what it should be, you know, because you're working 14-hour days, you know, and I realized that I was going to have to sell it. So I ran it for 6 years, and then I sold it to Mark and Annette Niel, Nantucket Catering Company, and they ran it for a year and decided that it wasn't the right fit for them. But then Ben, who was their pastry chef, and his wife bought it from them, and so now, then it became Wicked Island Bakery. So then they're still doing a great job, and I'm very happy for them that they've been able to move locations and they've got the space they need and stuff. But yes, I was very sad that I couldn't continue, but I wasn't physically going to be able to do it anymore.
How did kind of discovering your allergen and I guess I would say like having to give up baking impact your relationship with the culinary world? Did it change for you?
No,
being
it didn't really
involved?
change. In fact, it took Alan Kuna maybe 5 or 6 years that every time he walked into the High Line, he would give me the look at, what on earth are you doing here, you talented woman? What are you doing here? No, because I was still part of the whole, all my group of friends and all my colleagues and past employees and everything. I did definitely miss the creativity a lot. I did help my friend Susan Warner with her catering business for a while until she just retired a few years ago. So I had a little, foot in that a bit, but that was more front of the house. I did a little bit in her kitchen, but it was more front of the house. She could kind of put me wherever she wanted, But it makes you think about what is in your toolkit, because I needed a job, right? I needed a job to keep my husband and I, my favorite ex-husband and I had divorced, and I needed a job to keep the house. So it really made me, it was hard, because it's 32 plus years doing the same thing, and now a lot of my friends have given up or sold their businesses, and they're running into the same thing where you have a routine for that many years. It's difficult to sometimes break out of that, and figure out what is next. So so I did a lot of thinking, and Chuck Gifford actually was helpful I went and spoke with him at one point, and he was helpful in just kind of saying, well, look at your toolkit. And I'm like, my toolkit? And he's like, just look what you've done. Think about that, and then think about what you could apply it to. So that's what I did, and I heard about the job at the High Line by word of mouth from Beth at Pinwheels and my friend Nancy Moylan, and went and applied for the job. They were looking for a manager and got the job.
Really? Wow. Can you talk a bit about, did you feel a little in over your head as soon as you started working there? Going from being in restaurants for most of your life and now going to a completely different field.
I was so over my head. I wasn't over my head in the management stuff. However, I was pretty good at email when I started. So I had a huge learning curve with the computer, and David Scudder is the person who interviewed me, and I walked in and I put my resume on his desk. I said, I know what you're thinking. What's a person with this many decades of restaurant experience doing sitting in your office applying for this job? But I said, I think that it would be a good fit. I've always been completely associated. I could row at 5 years old. I grew up on a river in Westbrook. Was in the river literally my whole childhood, and always connected to weather and on boats and things like that. And he asked me, he said, are you afraid of the computer? I said, no, I'm not afraid of it. I just need to learn more, in fact, so anyway, yes, it was very tough. It was very tough. It was also tough walking into a team that was ready-made, and instead of a team that I had created with personalities and things like that. And so it was difficult at first, but I'm stubborn. I stayed the course, Donald, you have to stay over here. Come on, honey.
Oh, such a cute dog.
And so now I've been there, it'll be 12 years in November.
What were some of the experiences from running restaurants that you were able to translate into running the High Line?
Well, believe it or not, it's very similar.
Really?
Except for you don't have to feed everybody, so it's simpler.
Your quote is saying it's going from mealtime to boat time?
That's right,
Yeah.
except for there's more boats than meal times, and it's a much can you lie down? Much faster turnaround. Hopefully, we always hope that we don't have, some days are a little, tougher than others, but, and And it's the same team thing. It's working together. It's having somebody out there who doesn't, none of my agents feel like they're on their own. They can always ask someone else for help. I'm the first one to admit when I made a mistake. I walk out, I said, okay, you guys, I did a bad thing, but now we fix it. Same as in baking, you know. If you realize you've screwed up, there's possibly a chance, unless you've forgotten the salt, that you can fix it. Do you know what I'm saying with bread? But the same thing with this. But people they're so worried about being judged. Sometimes in jobs, they don't want to say they made a mistake. They don't want to ask a question because they don't want to appear stupid or something like that. They'll say, I have a dumb question. I said, there are no dumb questions. When people make a mistake, it's an opportunity for everyone to learn from it. And that's how I think about that, and they know that. So it's safe haven, and that helps a lot. Same as in the restaurant, same as at the bakery.
Going into like a new environment, does it take time to try to change or promote that culture?
Yes.
Yeah.
Depending upon the soldiers present. Yes. Sometimes it takes a while, but you just, perseverance, keep going little bit by little bit, and I don't hold stuff. If something happens, then we get through it. Boom, it's gone. And I think that probably helped me, because otherwise I probably wouldn't have stayed.
You may be one of those patient people on island.
I am very patient until I'm not. How's that?
What are some of the challenges that people might not know running the High Line for Nantucket? Is there any things that you'd be surprised about, or just even obvious ones?
Well, first of all, there are many challenges because we're on an island. And we're all used to going back and forth, okay? It's how we get anywhere, So it's kind of like getting in the car for a lot of us. We don't really think about it. It's a pain in the neck to get down there and get on the boat and the whole thing, especially in the summer, but we don't really think about it. People come to the island, and if they can't get off, they feel trapped. And they get scared, they get angry, they become verbose in a negative way. I think that is something that probably people don't realize, because they just think it's people go up, buy a ticket, get on the boat, and away you go. But it could be its own little sitcom down there. Nobody would believe the different things that happen. It's unbelievable, the things that come up, But, the wonderful thing is that usually the exchange is pretty quick, and most people are awesome. And it just is the few that are truly memorable, and can really, unless everybody kind of pat you on the back, and we go like this. We go like this, brush it off. If you guys ever go in, if they're going like this, you know who we've got. We got somebody in front of us. Brush it off. Let it go. Don't own it. That's on them. That's not on you. So I would say probably sometimes dealing with the customer service aspect with all the public probably would be. But the wonderful thing is that we really try to do whatever we can to help the Nantucket people. It's like I really feel from living here. I mean, I've been over here for like 43, 44 years now, okay, that, the Nantucket public needed an ally in the ferry business. And I hope that we are providing that for them. When things come up that are out of, when there's issues and whatever, we really try to help the people that travel with us all the time, even the guys back and forth, but primarily the Nantucket public, because we need an ally, because that's only how we get places. We can't, no one can afford really to fly. They're not even going to Hyannis that much, unfortunately, anymore. I wish they were, but anyway.
Similar to was it last year when you guys did the Chinese food delivery?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Was something to do with
New Year's.
The airplane couldn't make it, or the
New
weather
Year's,
or something?
Yep.
New Year's,
The whole boat smelled like Chinese food. And we didn't even charge to send stuff over.
Oh,
You
that's
know what I mean?
nice.
Because, I mean, what are you going to do? You know what I'm saying? But I'm still in good contact with Johan Rodriguez. He's the manager at Cape Air. And then also Noah Carberg now is the manager at the airport, and you know, the other factions with JetBlue and some of the big boys. So we're always, you know, in communication. And we're happy to help, especially that was, you know.
One other thing, being with the Highline for how many years now?
It'll be 12 in November.
Has any of the challenges you've faced evolved or changed, or has it been the same steady issues? Have you noticed any difference over the 12 years?
Well, it's a completely different business now than when I was hired.
Really?
Because before, when I was hired, we had the Great Point, which was our traditional boat, which was an hour and 50 minutes, okay? And then we had Gray Lady, okay, which is our smaller of the two high speeds. We didn't have as many inter-island boats, which I was rooting for, because I said, the first question out of their mouth is, where is the restroom? The second one is, how do we go to Martha's Vineyard round trip in a day? So we finally, now we've got 3 round trips per day. But losing the Great Point, you know, when we built Gray 4, I think it was partially, the steamship was part of that as well. I think they might have wanted that market, but also we were out of berths in Hyannis. And honestly, more people want to go places faster. Even though I feel the Great Point was one of those, the loss of the Great Point was one of those steps toward wedging out that market, where kids went free, you know, and it was like $18.50 for the ticket, you know. And I really missed that boat, because that was you know, evoked how people remember getting here, you know, years back. You know, now everybody's like fast ferry, but it was, you know, more of a reminiscent memory for people. I can't think of the word that I want, but to come on the slow boat and you come around you know, Brant Point and the whole thing. So that was a big change. But it's a completely different business now in terms of how busy we are. The things how well the system is working. The people from Finland have been sharpening their pencil, and they've been helping us out a lot. All of the different things that Highline, they don't really like to talk about it, but they do a lot for the community that they don't really talk about, you know. And it's just with the 2 high speeds, it's just a completely different business. It's more people, we need more people to work. It's more demanding. We have that whole out front. We don't own any of that. That's Nantucket Island Resorts. So we have to work within our footprint, and that's all structured like a restaurant, like the flow of a restaurant, to expedite what we're doing, because they rely on us to turn the boats around and get them out on time.
One of the challenges you face, what was it, last stroll, up to 200 people were stranded on island. Can you talk a bit about what happened and how you helped?
Well, that's a very interesting topic that you brought up, Dakota. So a couple years ago, the Gray 4 was coming into the harbor, and it was pea soup fog, and there was a Hinckley motorboat going out, okay? And that Hinckley motorboat was headed right for Gray 4, okay? And what ended up happening was the captain did evasive maneuvers, backed up, he did tag a couple sailboats, but the person who was driving that Hinckley lived, okay? Now, what happened, the net result of that was Gray 4 came in, and the Coast Guard had to come and check out the boat, and they deemed the fact that the boat could go back without any passengers. And the reason why I'm telling you this is I was looking at having to find somewhere on July 15th for 81 people to stay on Nantucket, and there were no rooms available, okay? So I've had a journey since then trying to, and successfully getting a group of people interested in this, and it's still in the works, although that horrible word liability has eked into the whole conversation. So we're kind of at a standstill right now. But on stroll weekend, I was like, oh my God, this is what we've been talking about. This is exactly what we've been talking about. So what ended up happening was, thankfully, Mark Anthony had just bought the beach side, and they had closed down one of the wings of it. So he had a bunch of rooms, okay? There were a couple other places that we were able to find for people to go. But what happened was, everybody knew that the boats were canceled. But what did they do? They went back to the bar and worried about it at 1 a.m., 12:30, 1 a.m. So they ended up at the police station, and they, we were all like, holy crow, and we helped as many people as we could. I was dealing with steamship people, Highline people. Steamship had a full room in there, and anyway, it was all, so I think because we had a meeting that had been previously scheduled 2 weeks before for the stranded passenger, a stranded passenger meeting the following Tuesday after stroll, all of a sudden everybody was interested.
Yep.
So anyway, so we did make some good headway. We still have some more work with that, but I'm actually stepping back as spearheading. I was the head cheerleader for that, so I'm stepping back now and not going to be spearheading it as much anymore because I have other things I want to work on. So.
Do you feel as though it'll eventually in time, something will be in place to be able to help either prevent or make maybe more awareness for people so they're not at the bar till 1 a.m, they maybe wisen up and try
those
to...
people, I think it also boils down to, because we were all there ready to help whoever.
Mm-hmm.
But then when our last boat was leaving, it was 8:20. Can you lie down, honey? Lie down. When our last boat was leaving and there was nobody in the ticket office, we're like, oh my God, this is like magic. It all worked out. How can that be? Well, it wasn't. So I think we all realized that there is some personal responsibility involved with this. And we're all working to, but the wonderful thing is that by getting all those people together, and it was a big group of private enterprise people, as well as Chantal from the Visitor Center and David from the Visitor Center, but is that everyone is more aware, so the communication is better. So like I'm, like one phone call away from the airport manager or any of those guys out there. What's happening? Are you guys, is that big JetBlue plane leaving or not? Because we need to know, because the 920 is leaving on time, So I think the communication is much better, and I think that, it'll get, there is something set up for like a stroll weekend or something like that event. It's just going to be the other little events that are going to be the ones that will have to be sorted out, So, and eventually we will have an active plan that everybody will know. It'll, police department obviously is part of it, the airport, Highline is, steamship, and even Sea Streak, so, we'll all work together with it.
Kind of going a bit on to Nantucket in general, what are some unique aspects or hidden gems of the Nantucket community that, I don't know, are one of your, that you've come to admire, I guess?
Oh, I don't know. There are too many, though. Dakota, there are too many.
I know.
I'm just so thankful that I'm in this community, I can't think of anything in particular, we all know where to go to get away from all the people in the summer, It's like I'm not giving up any of those spots, if that's what you're talking about.
No, if you're here long enough, you eventually find your own, right?
Yeah. No, I think that we're in a crossroads in a way, because everyone that lives here now and has been here for a long time realizes that things have changed a lot. There's been a lot of wonderful things that have happened, but there change is coming, and is here actually. It's almost too late to really think about how you would like to handle certain things, But I do think that there are enough people that really care about it on the island that if everybody would maybe leave their agendas on their kitchen table when they go to some of these meetings, I think that perhaps we could make more headway.
Do you find, kind of speaking back, and it's not even really that long ago, but Daily Bread's kind of being that it spot, do you still feel as though those are around the island, or do you think they're slowly disappearing?
Well, it's interesting that you bring that up. So when Blue Flag bought the building that off Center, and then Center Street Bistro was in that whole complex, okay? They were really the last ones of the mom and pop being able to afford a brick and mortar with their own money. Everybody else that's coming in needs a starter kit. I call it a starter kit. That means they have money behind them, either family money or investors or something like that. And I'm hoping maybe I'm wrong and that there are a couple little pop-up, you know, I think partially that's what's happening on Amelia Drive as they're trying to, you know, Remain is trying to help people to kind of, you know, get that going a little bit. But the cost of real estate in terms of rentals for businesses, for restaurants, for everything, if you were doing it on your own dime, you'd never be able to do it. If you were, like I started from nothing, you know what I mean? I was responsible for the electric bill, you know. I was responsible for, you know, the rent. Thankfully, Bill and Lucille were unbelievable, and they actually gave us like a 2-year payment plan so that we could afford to even buy that, you know, and it was, I'm not even gonna tell you what it was, but it was, you guys would all drop to the ground. They really helped out because they understood the situation, and that was way back then. So now, so I'm afraid the whole business aspect has changed, you know, and I'm not passing a judgment on it. It's just that the people that come that are just, you know, they're gonna be paying the light bill and for the lease and the whole thing, I'm not sure they'll be able to do it. In fact, I know they won't be able to do it.
We're kind of getting towards the end topic I like to bring up, but before I do that, I ask a few quick fire questions. You wanna
Sure.
You wanna get them? All right, perfect. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
I ever received?
Yep.
Well, that's a big one. But I will tell you, Jock Gifford, who actually owned the Straight Wharf, he said to me, he said I can give 2 things. He said, just because a kitchen is big doesn't mean that that's gonna be an awesome kitchen and put out good food. The smaller the kitchen, the more people are forced to work around it, and their creativity will be more so on the plate because of it. That was an interesting thing. And then he also said, don't wait until you're ready to have kids, that you have it all planned out. That was the other thing he said.
Those are both really good. The first one more so in my mind, because kids, I can't even imagine those right now.
Right, exactly.
If you could have dinner with any historical figure, who would it be and why?
Oh boy. Are they cooking?
Yeah,
Okay.
sure, we'll add it. Might make it easier.
I would have loved to have had dinner with Julia, one-on-one. I think that would have been so interesting to hear about her background, because she had quite a background in Europe and things like that. I mean, that just comes off the top of my head, but
That's a perfect
but
one.
I would have really loved. I mean, there's a lot of figures that I think would be interesting, but to go back in time and really hear the story from her, I think that would be really amazing.
What's one thing on your bucket list you haven't accomplished yet?
Although I got quite a few, actually. I'd like to go see the Grand Canyon and all of the monuments out west. I'd like to see a little bit more of this country, you know. I've been to Europe, I've been to, you know, England, Scotland, Italy, you know, all of those guys, Spain, Portugal, but I'd like to see a little bit more of our country, so.
If you had to pick one, what's your all-time favorite spot on the island and why?
I can't tell you that because that's going to give away my secret.
Well, your public favorite spot. There you go. How about one that anybody else will know? You don't have to give away a hidden nook.
Okay.
Maybe a restaurant or a bar.
Mr. Rogers Beach.
Okay. That's a good one. Yeah.
That's one of our, Donald loves that beach too, because that means that we're going to walk out to Esther's.
Oh,
So,
that's a good one. North Shore, South Shore beaches.
swimming is my sport, and it's the only place I can still move like I used to. So I'm not on the South Shore in the waves because I want to swim. So when I swim, I put a mask and snorkel on, and I go for maybe even half a mile because I'm poking around. You don't even realize, and all of a sudden you're like, oh boy, I want to get, so it's North Shore or west.
Okay. What's your favorite way to unwind and relax after a long day?
Go for a swim, we'll go to the beach, go for a walk with Donald, listen to music. Those are probably, to get outside with nature.
Yeah. What's one way you've found to be able to express yourself now that baking has been limited, or is there alternative ways you've?
Photography, actually, yep. I used to carry around all, the cameras and stuff. I had a Pentax K1000 forever, and I used that exclusively for a long time. But of course, the film issue now, I don't think there's any does anybody know if there's anywhere you can buy film on Nantucket? I don't think there is.
I don't think so.
But the most amazing thing is what they've done with my phone, which is on the ground now. With the phones is they, if you know how to work it, you can really do a nice job with the phones now. So, and I've been taking pictures of Nantucket for so long that you don't actually realize, but what you're doing is you're chronicling time going by. From the trees changing, from the buildings, from, a meadow becomes a swamp, or whatever. It's just, you don't even realize it till you look back at those old photographs. And the people that we've lost as well.
Yeah, when I was doing research on you through the archives, the Inquirer Mirror, your name pops up a lot because you provided them photos. I believe you provided them one for like a bird. I remember I forgot, there's a few others, but it had popped up a few times that you had given them photos that they had used in articles. So it's interesting. I was wondering why.
Yeah, I haven't done, that's my third act. I've already retired from the food business, and when I retire from Highline, some years from now, that probably will be, but that's my creative outlet now.
Going after Kit Noble?
No, Kit does a wonderful job with it, what he does. Mine is completely different, which is, so he's safe.
Okay, perfect. I'll let him know. Here's the question that branches off into the kind of last part of this interview as we're wrapping up. What do you envision for the future of Nantucket, considering its rich history, unique character, and the evolving challenge it faces? What are your thoughts on how the island can preserve its cultural heritage while embracing progress and addressing the needs of both residents and visitors?
Well, if we have the answer to that.
Yeah, it's such an easy, light question. I know, it's. You should be able to explain this pretty quick.
Well, I think that there's a lot of people here that care about all those things. And to get those people together and to really talk about what exactly would be the route of, or what would be the map. You have to make a map how to maintain something. I'm very concerned about the harbors and the quality of the water there, and in both harbors. I'm concerned about, when I talked about the diversity of what I served at Daily Breads, I'm very concerned about the fact that we have now, we have only one market, and it's up here. And everybody relies on that. The whole island relies on that, okay? I worry about that, But all those people that are coming, they can be invited in and be part of the solution. Some of the people that are, if they're actually interested in keeping what we have here, which is so magical, it's just getting to the point where it's harder to find that magic, The Whaling Muse, obviously, NHA does an amazing job. The quality of life still is good here, It's just that I think, we'll just have to see. But I do think people need to leave their agendas on their kitchen table when they go to the meetings, and actually talk about. It's not your own interests. You have to think about the big picture, not just what's important to you. You know, my feeling. That's just my feeling. That's how I approach it. I'll make decisions about stuff that I wouldn't necessarily, it's not going to help me any, you know, but it's going to be a decision for the greater good of whatever's going on.
Are you optimistic or pessimistic for the future of Nantucket?
I'm cautiously optimistic.
That's a good answer.
Yeah, and I do think that, you know, with the history will always be here. It's just getting it out to people, and I think that they do a good job. Everybody does a good job with that. The thing is that the natural element of Nantucket, that's what I think we really, really need to be more concerned about now. And the resilience of our shorelines.
For somebody coming out here, kind of similar to how you did back in the day, and they want to either, you know, start their life out here or open up a restaurant, what would you even tell them?
Why don't you just come for the weekend?
All right, well, I think, is there anything else you'd like to say?
No, I don't think so. Thank you so much for having me and having Donald.
I know, Donald is the best. He's such a good dog.
Yeah,
Oh.
he's been kind of quiet. He didn't have much to say today.
Well, thank you so much, Liz, and thank you for everybody who came out.
Thank you for coming.